Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Ajunulambita Bhujo Kanakabadato Sankirtanaika Pitaro Kamalaya Taksho Vishwambaro Dwijabaro Yugodharma Palo Bonde Jagat Priyakaro Karunabotaro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Sahodito Gaurārai Pushpavanto Chitro Samdo Tamono Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charano Sako Sukado Paramanando Sundaro Subala Priyo He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchan Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Shri Gauri Vaishnava Guru Parampara ki Jai Bhakti Vinod Parivar ki Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Mahashaya ki Jai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai Gaur Premanande Gaur Haribo. So good evening, good afternoon. Continuing our discussion from Madhya Lila, chapter 7, wherein Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has just agreed to accept the proposal of Nityananda Prabhu that he take a simple Brahmin named Krishnadas with him on his tour of South India. Tobe Tanur Vakya Prabhu Kori Angikari Taha Shabba Langcha Gela Sarvabhuma Ghare. Accepting the request of Nityananda Prabhu, Taha Shab, then the group, they all went Gela Sarvabhuma Ghare to the house of Sarvabhauma. So Sarvabhauma's in a different group of devotees. Now he's been with his intimate devotees from Nadia who have accompanied him, and he's broken the news to them and negotiated out a settlement, right? But it's been accepted on their part that now Sri Krishna Chaitanya, there's such a big name, he will go to South India. But Namaskari Sarvabhauma Asana Nivedila Sabha Kare Milit Tobe Asana Vasila. They entered the house of Sarvabhauma, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made namaskar to him. A little different relationship. Sarvabhauma, as we know, is older and very much from a social point of view, social religious point of view, senior to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Was just a young boy, right? 24 years old. Came in, he offered obeisances, and after seating everyone, Bhattacharya himself sat. Nana Krishna Varta Kohi Kohila Tonghare Tumar Tani Ailon Agya Magibare. They discussed various topics about Krishna. Nana Krishna Varta Kohi. And then Mahaprabhu informed Sarvabhauma that I've come to your house seeking your order. To do your bidding. He says further, Sanyas Kori Vishparup Giyachi Dakine So my older brother Vishwarup, he took sannyas and he has gone to South India. So now I must go and search for him. Agnya deha avasya ami dakhine chaliba. Tomar agnate shukke lueti asiva. So please, you give me your permission, because without your permission, with your permission, I should say, I'll very soon return. So he's deferring to Sarvabhaumacharya, who he's accepting as a guru in his life, even though he enlightened Sarvabhauma himself. Very cultured dealings. But hearing this, Shuni Sarvabhauma, Shuni Hoila, Atyantar Katar, Charane Dhariya Koe, Vishada Uttar. He became very much agitated, Sarvabhauma, disturbed, and catching hold of the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave a sorrowful reply. As you can imagine. Bahu janmera punya phale, painu tomar sangha. Bahu janma, many lives I've taken. And the fruit of all of this is come in the form as painu tomar sangha. I have attained your sangha. For so many lifetimes I've been wandering in material existence. And now that which is of value from all my lifetimes and all my searches has come to bear fruit in the form of your association. Henu sangha vidhi more, korilek bhanga. And now, by the will of providence, then this is being cut off, this your association. Shire vajra pade jadi putra mari jai. He says, if a lightning bolt strikes my head, he says, Shire vajra pade yadi putra mari jai, or if my son should die, Tahasahi tomar bichela sahunanaya. I can tolerate those things. But the idea that you are leaving and a separation that will result, that I cannot tolerate. Swatantri Ishwar tumi koribe gaman. Dina katau raha deki tomara charan. But you are the supreme Swatantra, independent Ishwar. So you will do as you see fit. And that I know. Still, I ask you to stay here a few days more, that I can see your lotus feet. You see, he has a little more Aishvarya for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu than the other group. But of course, he's just recently come into the fold, and now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is leaving, right? Tahavinai Prabhu Sitila Hoilaman, Rohila Divasha Katao, Nakoila Gaman. So, hearing the request, Mahaprabhu relented. And, excuse me, in the previous verse he says, Koho Raha Deki Tomara Charan Koribe Gamana Dine. But you will go, and I understand whatever is your will, that will be carried out. But if you could just stay a few more days, that would please me. So Mahaprabhu acquiesces, he agrees to stay a few days. But the Bhattacharya eagerly invited Mahaprabhu to his home and fed him very nicely. And Bhattacharya's wife, Sati, did the cooking. Krishnadas Kavira says there's a very nice story about this. I'll tell it later on. Later on in Antya-lila, I believe it comes, this story. But Agita Kohiba Taha Koriya Vistar Ebe Kohi Prabhur Dakhin Jatra Samachar. Later, what did I say? Okay, he says, so first let me describe his tour of South India. Dina Pancha Rahi Prabhu Bhattacharya. So he stayed for about 5 days, and And then he personally asked Sarvabhauma for his permission again. Give me permission now. I must go. But Prabhura agrahe batacharya samata huila Prabhu tanre lana Jagannath mandira gela. So after receiving the blessings of, in the form of the permission of Bhattacharya Sarvabhauma, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to take the darshan of Jagannath and get his permission as well. And the priest gave prasad to him and a garland, thus receiving the permission of Jagannath Swami as well, in the form of a garland. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would offer obeisances, and then with a joyful heart, he prepared to depart for South India. Bhattacharya Sanghe Ar Jatani Jagan, Jagannath Pradakshin Kori Lagaman. Accompanied by personal servants, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Mahaprabhu circumambulated Jagannath Swami, departed for South India. However, while on the way, they were taking him, the devotees are going to walk with him all the way to the outskirts of Jagannath Puri. They're told to stay in Nilachal, but it's a large area. So they're going to go to Alalnath, along the path to along the beach, follow him to just to the property line or the border line, right? And at that place, Bhattacharya gave orders to Gopinathacharya, you go bring some change of clothes for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and some Jagannath Prasadam. Carry these things with the help of a Brahmin. Tabe Sarvabhauma kahi Prabhuru charane avasya phalibe Prabhu moranibe dane. So then Mahaprabhu, as he was departing, just leaving now, Nilachala, the Bhattacharya submitted the following. He said, Prabhu, Moni Bedhane, I have just one more request of you. Ramananda Roy, Ache, Godabari Tire, Adikari Hayen Tengho, Vidyanagare. At the banks of the Godavari, Godavari was one of the famous rivers of South India. It was mentioned in the Bhagavad also, that many Vaishnavas will live along the banks of the Godavari in South India. This was a favorite place of Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj, whose disappearance day we're honoring tomorrow. Pujapad Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. And the subsequent meeting with Ramananda Roy that will be discussed in the following chapter, that is like I liken it to in Chaitanya Charitamrita, what the Bhagavad Gita is to the Mahabharata. So Ramananda Sambad, the conversation between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda is like that to Chaitanya Charitamrita. And of course, it's beautiful because the roles are reversed there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is asking the questions. Krishna is asking the questions, Gaur Krishna, and Ramananda is replying. And the parallel is played out that much more when we consider Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's opinion. Who is Ramananda Roy? He said, Ramananda Roy is Pandava Arjuna. So the speaker of the Gita was Krishna, and the questioner who drew out the answers was Arjuna. Here Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was taking the role as the questioner, and Ramananda Roy, or Arjuna, is tasked with giving the answers. As much as the Gita is like, in Mahabharata, of course, it's a very long book and full of all of those things that people are interested in, politics and romance, intrigue, and so forth. These, the way of the world is very much beautifully portrayed there in such a way that common people's attention will be captured. Of course, this is particularly so in the time that it was written. The book has value for all time, especially the Gita within it. But whenever it's written, will be very much in consideration of the time and the circumstances and so on and so forth. So you try to appreciate it and enter into it. I mean, it's like, like this is like a fantastic, modern, how you call it, Oscar-winning movie, Mahabharata, in its time, and therefore, even in this time, in recent times, let's say, when television started to sprout all over India. I lived in a time when you would never see a television, especially in Vrindavan. I lived at a time when there weren't televisions in the United States, right? And then we got a black and white one, then we got a colored one, and then your mother and father wondered, what more do you want? You've got a color television, we got a washer and a dryer, and you want to go out, leave home, we got everything here, everything you could possibly want. That was my generations. We had a response to that, but they couldn't understand, right? Seeking the more. Right? That time, the United States had become, they were very instrumental in the war. They were victorious and helped Europe and so forth. So economically, they rose to be the prominent power over England, which previously held that position. It's interesting to note that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur preached in a time when Gandhi's civil protest was nation, and the British Empire was really all over the world. It said the sun never set in the British Empire. Right? Somewhere the sun was shining in some aspect of the British Empire. Of course, we say that after what it did to India, the sun never shines in the British Empire anymore, and it's shrunk. Right? It's a bit cloudy over there. I've experienced. So, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was keen on sending seeing the Western missionaries coming from England and some from Germany to convert the heathens and so forth into the one true religion. He wanted to send missionaries back, right, to convert the British. But and that's well known. But what's not so well known is that he had a vision that the United States would become the most influential country in the world. This is before World War II. And so he expressed a desire, Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj told us this, he expressed a desire to spend 10 years himself preaching in the United States. And Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj said, and in the form of his disciple, Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada, he got 2 years, 10 years plus 2, because Prabhupada traveled for 12 years. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai. So Godavari, a place in South India, very pious place, mentioned in the Bhagavad. Many pious Vaishnavas will live along the bank of the Godavari. So here is Ramananda Roy is staying there. This was a favorite place of Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj. He was sent there. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur started a program in India to install like footprints, like made in marble or something like that, or stone, wherever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is said to have gone in South India, as recorded in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Sridhar Maharaj was sent to Godavari. He spent some time there. And this Ramananda Samvad was it was a section of the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Bhaktisiddhanta first told his disciples they couldn't read it. It's just the teachings of the Gita, right? But it's the teachings of the Gita in a way in which Krishna, in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was asking Arjuna, did you understand what I was saying? What were the deepest implications of that? It took place, the conversation in Kurukshetra, which is Dharmakshetra. What is the nature of Dharma? Of course, it rises to Prema Dharma. This is the statement of the Bhagavatam, right? Savai pumsam paro dharma yato bhatir bhaktir hoksaje aoitukiya pratiyataya atma samprasidati. Paro dharma, above the ordinary dharma, religious life, the moral life, the paro dharma, paradharma, supreme dharma. What is that? Bhaktir hoksaje. What is its nature? It is a haituki. It is not driven by anything other than itself. It gives itself only. It is bhakti for its own sake. That is bhakti for it hoksaja. It's another name for Krishna, right? And we heard in the house of Jagannath Mishra was the worship of Adhoksaja deity. It is unmotivated, means it's for its own sake it's performed, and nothing can check it. If you try to check it, it only increases. This is hidden in the pages of the Bhagavad Gita, in the Chatur Shlok, the 4 essential verses of Bhagavad Gita, the secrets of Rag Bhakti, of Braj Bhakti, Tushanti cha ramanti cha, he says. Tasting Sambandha Rupa Bhakti and Kama Rupa Bhakti, it means Sakya-rasa and Madhurya Rasa, is woven into the pages of Bhagavad Gita. Of course, you have to pay very close attention to find that out and have good association. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to find out how closely Arjuna had paid attention, right? But we were talking about Mahabharata, what such a great movie, such a great drama in its time. You can imagine, as I was saying, I knew the Braj where there was not even a thought of a television, and then televisions came, few of them here and there, and the people would gather around the television by the thousands. There was one over here and one over there, and what were they watching? Mahabharata. I guess Bollywood or someone had done a production of Mahabharata, and the whole nation, modern nation of India, was glued to the set, man, woman, and child. To see Mahabharata, right? So it has if you are brought up in the culture and so forth, it's going to have, and it's written in your time, particularly in the same culture, it's going to have more of an impact. That's why we say, if you're Polish, have a Polish guru. If you're British, have a British guru. If you're a Sudra, have a Sudra guru. If you're a Brahmin, have a Brahmin guru. But above all things, have a bona fide guru, whatever, from wherever he or she is from, right? That's the absolute consideration. But the relative consideration is something, if there's such an abundance of gurus, then you can say, well, in India, you can have a Sudra guru, you can have, if you're a Sudra, you can have, it means that there's a better, like minds can communicate more readily, right? It's a relative consideration, but the absolute consideration is have a bona fide guru, a qualified guru. So Mahabharata has this capacity to just like, even if you read it today, if you're a devotee, it's many devotees have testified to me that they couldn't put it down, even they're from different cultures and so forth, right? Of course, they're influenced by the great culture of Sanatana Dharma, but the point I'm making is that the way the book is written, that when you get to the point of the Bhagavad Gita, everyone is on the edge of their seat. The war is building up, all these intrigues, and it's coming to this climax that the war diplomacy is not going to work, right? And the bombs are going to go off. The war is going to happen. So everybody's on the edge of the seat, and Vyasadev's got everyone's rapt attention, and comes the Bhagavad Gita, 700 verses, right? What is the real war, right? It's the war against your ego, right? The oppression that you're experiencing from your mind and senses and so forth, and how to transcend that, right? Very beautifully stated by Krishna with emphasis on bhakti. So what's coming in the next chapter is now the Gita, if you will, of the Mahabharata of Chaitanya Charitamrita. But it goes up because the Chaitanya Charitamrita is all about prema dharma from beginning to end, unlike the Mahabharata. Then the reenactment, if you will, of the Gita, it's going to be on a higher level. We're going to take those 4 verses of the Gita and make them the centerfold. What is prema bhakti, right? And a little bit what is not prema bhakti. This is Ramananda Samvad. So this is coming, and here is the first mention of Roy Ramananda in the text. Ramananda Roy Achigordantire Adikari Hayin Ting Homidyanagari. There's a person named Ramananda. He lives on the bank of the Godavari. He's a very responsible member of the king's government. And his name is Ramananda Roy. And he makes a nice statement here. He says, Sudra Bishahi Jnane Upeksha na koribe. Amar Vachana Tanre Abasha Milibe. He says, please don't upeksha na koribe. Don't neglect him. Upeksha na koribe. Don't neglect him. Shudra Bishai Jnane. Because you have the impression that he's a Sudra and a Vishayi. So Ramananda Rai was from the Sudra Varna, and he appeared like a Vishayi. What's a Vishayi? It means like a enjoyer, a sense enjoyer. This is his outer appearance. But Sarvabhauma says, don't neglect him because he looks like that. Amar Vachana Tanre Abashu Milive. It's my request that you meet him without fail. There's of course, now this reminds us how, when they did meet, how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu observed this instruction about the charge of Sarvabhauma, right? Because at the banks of the Godavari, when Mahaprabhu arrived there, Ramananda Roy was arriving to bathe, and he was being carried on a palanquin, and he was very dressed in silken garments and so forth. He's from the Sudra Varna, which is the nature of this Varna, Varna system in India is not what people think, especially people in the West. It's a very misunderstood concept, and it's very much less rigid. Even if you look carefully at the core text, even the Manu Samhita, for example, would be more of a rigid book about Varnashram and the duties of the different Varnas and so forth than that. The book itself says, but this should be adjusted according to different times and circumstances. It's all relative. This is not absolute. The moral order is relative in one sense. What sense? In terms of what's moral at one time may be immoral at another time. But there should be morality at all times, right? Right? Unless you cross over the moral limitations, and that's what we're encouraging people to do by spiritual practice, right? To transcend. Morality is like a cage. If you take an animal and put it in a cage, you could train the animal. You could put some food. No. Quiet. Okay. Now take. Right. You can train like this. So we come from animality to humanity, and we want to go from humanity to spirituality. Right. So the beginning is this training. Say please. You teach your children, say please. Okay, now say thank you. This is human life. We don't try to teach that to our dogs. Say please, say thank you. I try, but it's hard. It's hard enough with children, not to speak of animals. Children are in a position to learn. They're human beings, right? So we teach, show gratitude, have manners. Let your sister go first. Now you can go, or whatever may be the case, right? But we're not meant to stay in the cage. That's not the sum and substance of what religious life, spiritual life is about. And we know that. We sense that. Therefore, we sense that there are limitations to the moral life, that we should be able to go beyond. So Gaudiya Vaishnavism, Hinduism in general, is a solution to this. It begins with Varnashram, Dharma. Within that, the Varna system is a very controversial feature of Hinduism that is not as central to Hinduism as some people make out in the West, as a means to dispense with Hinduism and call it racist and so forth. For example, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, from let's say an academic point of view, is one expression of the multi-face religious faces of Hinduism, right? And Gaudiya Vaishnavism, it begins Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam. It's the end of the Gita. It's the beginning of the Bhagavatam. Dharma, Sarvadharman Parityajya. What is it? Sarvadharma means give up the Varnashram. Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam. Take shelter. Varnashram is many gods, many goddesses. Oh, and many rules. Turn this way, don't turn that way. Sleep in this direction, bow in that direction. Urinate this way when the wind's not blowing the same way, or whatever. And pay obeisances to the wind god when you're doing it, and so forth. So many rules. This is the moral life, right? Trying to cage us, right? And in giving some reward. If you follow that, you get some reward. Right? So you're willing to follow because you want the reward, right? So this is the text, the Dharma Shastras, going with the momentum, the trajectory that we're on. It's very user-friendly. We want things, we think, we're under the misconception that if we acquire more, the gap, the emptiness that we feel will be filled. So it says, all right, we'll get more. Go, you can take more. Do it like this, though. Do this, recite this magical formula and put something in the fire and so forth. I mean, it's a whole system. It's real, but you get the result. But of course, as I often say, and this is a very important point, what that scripture, the Dharma Shastras, for example, what is the result that they're really giving you when you perform the ritual properly and you get a good son, because that's what you wanted, right? You get a beautiful daughter because that's what you wanted. And you ate this right potions for so many days and so forth before the married couple has the union. And afterwards you did this and that, and boom, you get a daughter. So what do you get? What more do you get than the daughter? What you get, the real gift is you get faith in this text. It works, right? It's very practical. It captures your faith. So if your faith is captured, then you look at it more seriously. And you keep reading and you find out the real gift here is not things, but it seems to be getting away from things. They're actually the source of my problems. Attachment is the womb from which suffering is born. Well, this is very radical. When this hits like a thunderbolt, oh my God. Right? And then if you go further, then you can start moving away from things. You start to get experience of the self. Your faith is deeper, right? So from Dharma Jignasu, inquiring into the religious moral life, to inquire into contemplative life, the nature of the Atma. In Karma Kanda, we're worshiping God, and in Gyan Kanda, we're saying, if there's anything you want to know God, that's why you're worshiping Him. I don't really want to know Him. I just want to get something from Him. But yeah, maybe I should know Him. A little more. Okay, I'm coming in that direction. So what does the Gyan Kanda tell us? If you want to know God, what is it in this world that most resembles God? Omkar? We, the Atma. This is godlike. And consciousness. We were talking about this earlier, right? Consciousness. You can't define it. It defies definition, right? It's not confined by time and space. It's magical in comparison to the way things otherwise seem to work, right? So this is the beginning statement of the side of the Upanishads. You are like God. You are God. You are one with God. But we don't stop there, right? Let me qualify this. This means now rasa jignashu, inquiring to rasa. This would be the progression, for example, that we find in the Ramanuja Sampradaya. First, qualify yourself in karma, then in gyan, then come to bhakti. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can't wait. It's Kali Yuga. He comes, Krishna comes in the form of a sadhu, and through sadhu sangha, suddenly people with no dharma, like me, are inquiring about rasa, right? We inquire. Of course, we inquire properly from a proper sadhu. We learn theoretically what is rasa, how to pursue it, and what to look for as the signs that I'm making progress. What will they be? I'm becoming dharmic. Okay. I'm coming to contemplative life. Okay. But not with these as goals. There's the byproducts, the beginning, the cleansing of the heart, right? From activities that are impious to having a pious disposition, right? And then this is all within the realm of karma, right? If we're going that, we're not saying that first we're going to, anyway, the results that one will get from bhakti, these will be the beginning. You won't get rasa tomorrow. That won't come. But this is what to look for along the path, right? And that is the power then of sadhusanga, right? So the Varna system, at any rate, is a beautiful idea. It's not a racist idea. It just accepts the fact that there are people of different dispositions. Now we say there are 4 Varnas, right? But actually there are 4 million Varnas in India. Hinduism just keeps making new Varnas as they go along. Somebody comes from another place and they settle in India and they're like that. We call that group, we give them another name, some kind of Varna. So this is an example here. Because how is it that a Sudra, like Ramananda, is being carried on a throne by others, and he's dressed all in silk, and he's he's obviously got some money and so forth. So he's a kayasta. This is it's not mentioned in the Gita. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Kayasta. Right? But it's another caste. They're Sudras, but somehow, I don't know the whole story of that, but they got elevated in the society to hold like clerical types of employment. And here, Ramananda Roy was a government minister. This is a Kshatriya role, but somehow the Kayastas, anyway, they made up a new Varna. So it's rather inclusive, and also it's fluid. If you study the text carefully throughout, if you look carefully, you can find it's very fluid. This is especially mentioned in the Gita and the Bhagavatam itself also. It's fluid. In other words, if you're born in a Brahmin family, but you act like a Sudra, or worse, whatever. And that's not bad. I mean, it's just different. But he could be bad. Well, then you're bad. We could call you a bad Brahmin, but that's not a Brahmin, because Brahmins are good. that's their nature. Of course, unfortunately, that's a symptom of Kali Yuga, the corruption of the Brahminical class, right? So here we're reminded of what? When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Godavari and he saw the procession, and he could understand, oh, this is obviously a government servant, and even Brahmins were celebrating him and praising him and so forth, being carried on a palanquin, and then Vedic hymns were being recited as he went to take a bath. And so Mahaprabhu could understand from his omniscience, but also from the external symptoms. This is Ramananda Roy. And then he went, and Ramananda Roy saw him, a sannyasi, and they embraced. And the Brahmins are going, what's going on here? This isn't Varnashram. A sannyasi is embracing a Sudra who's a rather bit a sense enjoyer, it would appear. This is against the Dharma, they're thinking. They couldn't understand it, and they were weeping. And in the context of Mahaprabhu asked, you please come. Sarvabhauma has told me to hear from you. Right? I want to hear from you. And well, the humble Ramananda Roy, what did he say? He said, what can I say? You're a sannyasi. You are God, he said. He could understand who he was also. What can I say to you? What did Mahaprabhu say? Ki babi prakibanyasi shudra kenai noi. Ye Krishna tattva. Say Guru Hai. Very important instruction. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, a devotee asked me today, he said he had received Harinam from one guru in another institution, but over time he had lost inspiration, and over a further time he had gained inspiration from another guru in another institution. I don't know who that is, but he said that he would like to take the mantra diksha from that guru. So he asked, should I get permission from the other guru? And I said, you could, you might not, but the question is, do you need permission? There may be an etiquette that shows gratitude, though you graciously gave me Harinam, and now, many years later, this is my situation. I wanted to tell you of my growth and present state and so forth, and my source of inspiration. Now, if a guru should hear that who gave Harinam, you think, oh, very nice, good. Somebody's helping me with this task, right? Especially if you know the person, you've heard of him, and he's famous, which this other guru just happened to be a little famous. Everybody knows him. Not everybody likes him, I guess, but everybody knows him. Everybody in ISKCON knows him, and they know he's actually good, but we're supposed to say that he's not that good. But anyway, some of them would say, yeah, he's good. That's good, right? So this is the situation. So I said, you could, but it's a formality, and I asked the question, who is the guru of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Can you say? Ishwar Puri. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took the mantra from Ishwar Puri and he went mad. Krishna mantra. And next thing you know, he's running off to Katwa to take sannyas from Keshava Bharati. Did he send an email to Ishwar Puri? And Keshava Bharati said, what does the GBC say about that? No, he gave him sannyas. Mahaprabhu went to South India, right? At the order of another guru, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, as he considered him. And when he met there Ramananda Roy, and he says, you're my guru. Kibabi prakibanashi shudra kenai ye Krishna tattva say Guru. Whatever position you're in, whether you're a Sudra, a Brahmin, sannyasi, whatever, you know about Krishna. And discipleship means I want to know about Krishna, wherever I can find him, wherever I can find nourishment. That's my guru. right? So he accepted Ramananda Roy as his Raghunar guru, and he didn't ask permission. Now, I'm not against, the courtesy and the etiquette and so forth, but the circumstances don't always afford us the opportunity. It wasn't there for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Well, we have to follow this sadhana, this call, if you will, of the Absolute, in a dynamic way. In the way you came, you broke all rules to come to this. So don't be too afraid. Don't be now cowered down by rules. You have to know the meaning of the rules, the spirit of the rules, right? Aside from that, this is an interesting statement of Mahaprabhu that I cited. Kiba vipra kiba nasi sudra kenino ye Krishna tattva beta se guru hai. Whoever can teach me about Krishna, whoever knows Krishna, that he's my guru, right? So there is also a strong in India, strong amongst the religious and amongst even Gaudiya Vaishnavas, emphasis on varnashram. Let me give you an example. Some Gaudiya Vaishnavas today, they teach women cannot be gurus because Sri Dharma forbids it. Sri Dharma means varnashram, the duties of the women within varnashram. Now, I'm not sure Sri Dharma actually forbids it, but okay, maybe it does. But we're not doing varnashram. That's the point, right? We're doing something that steps on the head of varnashram. That is the parodharma I referenced earlier. I mean, what could be a better example than the gopis stepping on the head of Dharma? They ran after Krishna. We're supposed to follow that ideal, right? They violated the varnashram, apparently, but actually, what they did was sarvadharman parityaja mamekam sharanam braja. This is the flute sound of Krishna, this verse, calling us away from the limits of the moral life to the wild life, the freedom of spiritual life. Well, this is a different path. There are some parallels. There is some overlapping. What is taught about cleanliness and so forth, these type of things in varnashram, we carry that over. But not anything that will rule over bhakti. Rupa Goswami has taught us what? The kind of bhakti that we are teaching is called Uttam Bhakti. It's characterized marginally by what it's not, and what it's not is that kind of bhakti that is covered by karma or gyan. What does covered by karma mean? It means I think that if I don't follow the varnashram, my bhakti will be hindered. Or if I follow the varnashram rules, my bhakti will be increased. No, it is a haituki and pratihata, as I cited earlier. Nothing can give bhakti. It can only give itself. And nothing can check bhakti, can take you away from bhakti. If you're doing bhakti, if you don't do varnashram, it's not going to affect your bhakti. To think that means that your bhakti is covered by karma. So if you think women cannot be gurus because the varnashram says that, your bhakti is being covered by karma. This is not Uttam Bhakti taught by Rupa Goswami. So you see, this is a powerful thing. This is, it might not mean that much to us because we come from a different culture, but like varnashram, the whole of India is gripped by this for thousands of years through the influence of modernity and so forth. Of course, it's waning and it's been distorted and so forth, and it's not like running the country and so forth. It's disappearing slightly, but still in the religious community, you can find people very much influenced by this. So I'll give you another example. There's some Vaishnavas who think that if you're not born in a Brahmin family, you cannot be a guru. Now we can quote this verse, right? It's coming from the lotus mouth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. What do those people say? You can be Siksha Guru, but not Diksha Guru. Siksha Guru you can be, no problem. But Diksha Guru, no. That is only for Brahmins. You see, in the Varnashram, the Brahmins were the gurus, right? Well, that's in Varnashram, right? But now that is the moral life. Right? Now this is another path, taking it to a much higher level, right? When Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Roy, what is the goal of life and how to attain it, he said, oh, follow the Varnashram. Mahaprabhu said, let's say something a little more. That's a little external. It starts there. Mahaprabhu rejects that, rejects several things until Rai Ramananda speaks about Shuddha Bhakti, Gyan Shunya Bhakti, Bhakti, what would speak of unencumbered by karma, unencumbered by Gyan also. So they say, anyway, you can be a Siksha Guru, but not Diksha Guru. What is the problem with this? I'll tell you the problem with this. The Siksha Guru concept is a totally Gaudiya concept. Totally a Gaudiya concept. You won't find in Bhagavad Gita where it says, Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Upadakshite Ganinas approach a Siksha Guru, or a Diksha Guru. It doesn't say. Any statement in any Purana and Veda, anywhere, Guru is mentioned, you're never going to find the term Siksha Guru versus Diksha Guru. This is a total Gaudiya construct. It's not a bad thing, but it's a good thing. But it should be understood properly. And the opening of this book, Chaitanya Charitamrita, deals with this issue because the first words of the text are Vande Gurun. Gurun is in the plural. Now that's respectful, if you can use the plural to show respect, but also there is a plurality of gurus in the life of the author himself, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Vande Guru. I offer my respect to the gurus, to the guru. And he himself then explains that line, Vande Gurun, by elaborating on the concept of the Diksha Guru and the Siksha Guru. And what does he say about them? He says the Diksha Guru and the Siksha Guru are equally spiritually qualified. They differ only in the functions that they perform. So it's not a lack of spiritual qualification that makes one a Siksha Guru rather than a Diksha Guru. It's just the Siksha Guru is someone who gives instructions to someone who's already got Diksha. Otherwise, if I give Siksha, I could be in trouble because you could be captured by the Siksha, by my instruction. You could, and then you say, now you have to give me Diksha. Right? So typically, who's giving Siksha becomes the Diksha Guru. And afterwards, giving Diksha, he gives further Siksha. But there may be an instance, and this was important in Gaudiya Vaishnavism at a particular time, it still is today. They want to preserve the Guru institution, but sometimes the Gurus may lack some knowledge. Maybe they lack some character, it's possible also. But in that case, then, if that becomes the case, that he should be respected, but then we will accept a Siksha Guru. Look at Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He was initiated by Bipin Bihari Goswami, but at a certain point in his life, Jagannath Das Babaji became more prominent. There's a book, Bhakti Vinod Charit, written by Krishnadas, who was a servant of Bhakti Vinod in the last years of his life. It's a little book about the life of Bhakti Vinod and his character. Nowhere in there is his Diksha Guru even mentioned, but Jagannath Das Babaji as a Guru figure is repeatedly mentioned in there. Now that's not to minimize Bipin Bihari Goswami or anything. We respect the Diksha Guru of Bhakti Vinod as he did as well. But he saw the need to get the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, what we find in Bhakti Vinod, we don't see in Bipin Bihari Goswami, and he lived with Bipin Bihari Goswami. He knew him. That's just to state a fact. But we saw it in Jagannath Das Babaji. So he made the connection like this. So this is an idea influenced by Varnashram, and another instance of bhakti covered by karma. Only if you're born in a Brahmin family can you be a guru. But Mahaprabhu said this, it doesn't matter. But that's only Siksha Guru. This is a total distortion of the whole principle. It would mean you are less qualified spiritually, right? But the statement of the explanation of the concept of Siksha Guru from Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is just the opposite. They're equally qualified. Now, that said, we can also appreciate another explanation of the Siksha Guru given by Jiva Goswami in his commentary on Bhagavatam. In Bhagavatam, it says, not by one guru alone can you attain the goal. And this is in the context of the Abhadut, story of the Abhadut. He saw the bee, the bumblebee as his guru, and the fish and the bird, and I think he had 26 different aspects of nature from which he learned something. Jiva Goswami says there were his Siksha gurus. So this is a lower end explanation of Siksha guru, right? Obviously, the bumblebee is not as qualified as so there's some spectrum there, right? That we could consider, and but the point is here that this idea that you can only a Brahmin can be the Diksha Guru. This is bhakti covered by karma, another example. So we don't want that idea. It's hard to relate to, perhaps, but if you lived for birth after birth and were born in India, and you have some, and you're religious and so forth, this is a little harder. The idea of giving up varnashram, it's harder than you might think. It's ingrained in you have some scars for it, and so on and so forth, right? But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming and creating a revolution. He made Haridas Thakur the Namacharya of his mission. He made Rupa and Sanatan, who were disenfranchised from the Hindu community, his leading commentators, our Shastra gurus, and so forth. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will meet with Ramananda Roy, and he's going to meet with him because Sarvabhauma has asked, right? And Sarvabhauma says, Panditya ar bhakti rasa dunher tenghong singma, sambhashile joni betumi tangharo mohima. He said this Ramananda is a very learned scholar, and he's very exalted, and if you talk with him, you'll see just how wonderful he is. And here's the nice verse. Alokika vakya cheshta tanana bhujya parihas kuriyachi tanre vaishna boliya. He says that I could not understand him. Alokika vakya. He spoke vakya, alokika. It was like, where are you coming from? What are you talking about? He says, cheshta tanra na bhujya. His activities, I couldn't understand them. The way he conducted himself, what he was talking about. He says, parihasya, turiyachi. I laughed at him. I made fun of him. I made him the butt of jokes. I've done this unto him and criticizing him as, I call him, he's a Vaishnav, I guess. I mean, he was an Advaitin, right? One of those silly, emotional Vaishnavas. But of course, what he's saying here, let's come in the next verse, but by your mercy, Tomar Prashade, by your mercy, Ebe Janinu Tanra Tattva. Now I have understood the truth about Ramana, because I've experienced something in your association. I've tasted that, and because I have a taste for that, now I can understand what he was talking about. So I know that if you talk with him, you two are on the same page. You have to meet him, he says. So Ramananda Roy, a little difficult to understand, as all Vaishnavas are. Vaishnavera kriya mudra bigne na bujai. They may act like ordinary worldly people. Bhakti can look like karma. Because in bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Shapanam, you can do all these things. I meant Arjanam. Same thing, right? You're going to worship the deity, you're going to have to buy some clothes for him, right? So it looks just like ordinary people, but the motive is different. So to understand the motive that's driving the Vaishnava, this is difficult. The heart of the Vaishnava, difficult to understand, right? Vaishnavera kriyamidra mudra bignena bhujai. So this Sarvabhauma is making a testament. I had difficulty understanding him. And even for within Gaudiya Vaishnavism, on another level, he's a little difficult to understand. Who is he? We said he's Pandava Arjun, right? In his famous book, Gaura Ganadesh Tipika, what does Kavi Karnapur say? He says, oh, this devotee is in Gaur Lila is this devotee in Krishna Lila. This devotee in Gaur Lila is that devotee in Krishna Lila. He's tracing out, like I said, these devotees realized they themselves were the associates of Krishna, appearing in another Lila with him, in his Gaur Krishna Lila, right? So they came from Golok along with him. He didn't come alone. And so scholar like Kavi Karnapur did some research, he says, in the beginning of the book, consulting with other devotees, looking in the scriptures, hearing different opinions. Then he voiced his own opinion. Who is who? The who's who of Gaudiya Vaishnavism it is, right? And Rupa Goswami is Rupa Manjari and so forth. And Jiva Goswami is Vilas Manjari, and Nityananda Prabhu is Balaram, and so forth, right? It's this very exciting text. There are other texts like this. Later, a century later, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote a similar book. And he has some differences of opinion here and there. Mostly the same, but some differences. And there are differences of opinion that are also cited in Kavi Karnapur's own verse. Some say this, some say that. And it really reaches a zenith in this regard when we come to Ramananda Roy. He says, oh, Ramananda Roy. Some say Ramananda Roy is a combination of Pandava Arjun and the Narmasaka Arjun of Braj. He says. And then he says, Ramananda Roy worshipped Radha and Krishna. This was his preoccupation. And this is what he spoke to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about. So what you can see, what Kavi Karnapur is trying to do here, he said, okay, he's Pandava Arjun. Well, Mahaprabhu said that. So we're not going to contradict that. But Pandava Arjun is, what does he know about Raj Bhakti? So they're trying to somehow extend the idea without contradicting Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So some say he's Pandava Arjun, Mahaprabhu has said that, but he's Pandava Arjun in whom the Narmasaka Arjun has merged, or the two of them together, a third entity, something like that. They're trying to theologize, how is it that Ramananda, if he's Arjun, would have all these insights? Of course, we could say if he paid really close attention to the Gita, maybe we can argue like that, but this is how they're thinking in that time. And then he says, some people said that he's Lalita, Saki, but that contradicts what Mahaprabhu said. He's not saying he's also Lalita. So many devotees think that. No, if you look at the text carefully, he's saying that's not accepted. That contradicts what Mahaprabhu said. Others say that he is Arjuniya Gopi. And Pandava Arjun. Because Pandava Arjun, Arjuniya Gopi, is a day in the life of Pandava Arjun. And he said, that's a very good opinion. He said, but really all three of these opinions could be correct. One of them, he's discarding, that he's Lalita Saki. What is, so we explained the idea that he's Arjun, the two Arjuns combined. That's one idea, right? The other idea that is Mahaprabhu's idea that he's Pandava Arjun alone, or that's all he said about it, but there could be more to be said, is the idea. And the third idea is what? That he's Pandava Arjun and Arjuniya Gopi, means a day in a gopi day in the life of Pandava Arjuna, because there's a story in the Puranas that Arjuna asked Krishna, "What's the story about you and the gopis? What's that all about?" Right? That story from Braj. What is it about you and the gopis? So Krishna told him, go to Braj and bathe in this lake. And he went there and bathed. He came out as a gopi. That's Arjuniya. Had 24 hours as a gopi. And the gopis came and brought him around until he experienced Gopi Bhav, and then he turned back into Arjuna. Okay. I couldn't put it in words. I can appreciate that because I couldn't repeat it, but wow. So these are the three opinions. But the two, other than that Mahaprabhu is, that Pandava Arjuna that Ramanand Roy is Pandava Arjuna, they're both trying to bring in some Braj Bhav into Arjuna to explain the position. The explanations were so deep, and it took Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from Varnashram to Mahabhav in Ramananda Samvad, right? In Chaitanya Charitamrita, in 3 places, Krishnadas Kaviraj identifies Ramananda Roy with Sakyarasa. And in the last place, in the Antya-lila, he says that just as Lalita Sakhi in Braj tendered to Krishna, and Radha Krishna, when they were feeling separation, love for one another. Similarly, Swarup Damodar ministered to or tendered to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Antya-lila. And just as Subal tendered to Krishna in the Braj Lila, so has Ramananda Roy. So he has identified Ramananda Roy with Narmasaka Bhav. So he seems to like the first idea of Kaviraj. Like Subal, that can mean Arjun, the Narmasaka Arjun. He liked that idea. Now, to complicate things further, I mentioned to you that there's a later book, a century later, of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he says almost the same thing as Kavi Karnapur, but some differences. And this is one difference, he says. And Pandava and Ramananda Roy is Pandava Arjun, and he's the Gopi Arjuniya, so he takes that opinion at the same time. Who's like, now you should be careful about this. Don't think, well, Arjun is a Saka, but he's also a Gopi. He's also Arjuniya. He has 2 different Sthayi Bhavs and 2 different. No, it's not like that. He was a Gopi for a day. He's Pandava. He was given the experience for a day. He doesn't become a Gopi. He doesn't have 2 Sthayi Bhavs, and therefore you can be a Gopa over here and a Gopi over there. Some people think you can be a Gopa and a Gopi in the Braj Lila at the same time. They don't understand really the teaching of Rupa Goswami with regard to the culture of Raga Bhakti. This is a confused idea. So anyway, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, he is Arjun and Arjuniya, and Arjuniya is an expansion of Vishaka. Therefore, we call him Vishaka. Now, he doesn't give any support for that, but we honor the exalted position and feeling of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and devotees, many have taken it in that way, because Lalita and Visakha, they understood Radha Bhav very, very well. And this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was trying to experience, right, in the Antya-lila. But of course, so does Subal. So that is also a very good opinion. So anyway, the point is, in many ways, Ramananda Roy is a complicated person, right? And the Bhattacharya Sarvabhauma, his head was spinning. But now he's making up for what he feels was his own offense. Right? He's basically asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, take it back. I criticized him. I was wrong for that. I'm making a confession to you. He's more or less saying, let him know. I'm sorry for that. Now I've understood, right? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says such. We'll go on to hear from Ramananda Roy in the next chapter. So this is where we leave off in our discussions. Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Roy Ramananda ki jai. Oh, Premanande. So tomorrow, as I mentioned, is the disappearance day of Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj. So I think we gather again for class at 10 o'clock. So we'll speak a little bit about Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj and his influence on all of us. We're so blessed to have that, such a dear friend of Prabhupada, and such a perfect fit for Siksha Guru. Right? Pujapad Bhakti Rakshak Shiradev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Gaur Premanand.